Thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk about the first episode of Archetypes, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex's podcast on Spotify. Let's get into it. Once again, thank you so much for clicking on my video. If you have not already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I drop a new video. So today I want to talk about episode 1 of Archetypes. Now, if you have not already, go ahead and check out my review of the teaser. And I want to watch that again and then compare what my thoughts were compared to what we actually heard. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was very necessary. And as a woman in business and also a married woman in business, it could not have been more on par. I thought the conversation around men versus women and the way ambition is used, and I would say used is a polite word. I would say ambition is used as a compliment to men and it is used as a weapon against women. And I have actually had the same experience. So I definitely resonated with this podcast episode. And who better to discuss ambition than Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and Serena Williams? So I want to talk about the warm opening. I was a little surprised at how warm and how casual and how comfortable I immediately felt listening to this podcast. I sometimes listen to podcasts that are instructional. I listen to language podcasts like language learning. I listen to The Read, which is my favorite podcast. I listen to The Friend Zone. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. And I will say, I didn't know what to expect. From what I know of Meghan, it is not like audio. It wasn't like radio. It's not like she was a singer, she was an actress. So I was like, I wonder what we're gonna get. And I was very pleased. I immediately felt disarmed. I immediately felt like she's here to chat with us about something and not finger wag. And I don't know why, I even have to say that. Obviously, that wouldn't have been her thing, but it was nice to see the finished product and the first episode. And I feel like we're going to be on a very fun but informative ride. I also felt like the way Serena and Meghan connected was amazing. You can tell they have a friendship. And at the beginning, we heard a little bit of Harry inviting Serena over to their house to catch up. And we heard that throughout the episode that the three of them are essentially three peas in a pod, that they're friends and they get along very well. And I think that's pretty obvious. But it was nice to get a little peek inside their friendship. So after the very warm opening of the icon that is Serena by the icon that is Meghan, I was like, you know what? I love that she is never afraid to give someone their flowers, but we'll get there. I felt like a bunch of the quotes were very relevant. And so instead of just kind of reviewing the whole podcast, I want to kind of talk about like the quotes and talk about that a little bit. So the first quote that I noted was often women are definitely put in these different boxes. When we are ambitious or when we have goals or when we reach our goals, there's a negative connotation to how we reach our goals. And that was said by Serena, which was then quickly followed up by a quote from Meghan. But even in the context of a schoolroom of a little girl, if a little girl is ambitious or raises her hand more, what is she called? Bossy. Serena then says, I was reading an article about how girls tend to raise their hands less and less as time goes on because their confidence begins to fade because of the things that they are called. And so I found a few articles, so I don't know the exact article, but I will say, based on what she said, I feel very confident that the article I found is the article, but I can't guarantee it. It's in the description box below, and it's on Edutopia, EDUTOPIA, .org, and it's called Gender Equity Classroom by Rebecca Alber. And I read that article and they were spot on. They were spot on. I remember my experiences in school, as in primary school and middle school, junior high, high school. And yes, young ladies are encouraged to STFU. We have another quote here by Dr. Laura Cray. And her quote was, As researchers, we run experiments and we give people scenarios of men versus women. We see that the identical behavior is rated more negatively when it is a woman than when it is a man. So an ambitious woman is power hungry. She's manipulative, is not trusted, whereas an ambitious man is seen as, I want to emulate him. He's a role model. He's a captain of industry. Right. So we see people using three different terms for the identical behavior. So the only explanation is it boils down to the antipathy towards women. And it's almost, the fix is in. It's by design. It's a way of keeping women in their place. I feel very, very connected to that because I am a very ambitious woman. I work really hard, and I like to work based on data. Sometimes I am not the most personable person when I'm working because I'm driven. And so I like to optimize. I like to make sure that people are cohesive. I like to render aid. I like to problem solve. I like to prevent. I like to think of resolutions and find creative solutions. I'm always plowing through data and I'm always in this space of like fix it, prepare kind of thing. I'm super proactive. So I'm always, even when I fixed everything, I'm now looking at the things I fixed and I'm like, how can we be more proactive on the front end? So I have had experiences with male dominated industry or companies that I've worked for where I have actually gotten in trouble, like literally pulled aside and given a formal reprimand because someone in sales felt like I was not their friend. That was not required of any of my male counterparts. And his critique was, and the owner of the company actually came into the office to pull me aside and say, he does not feel like you're warm or nurturing. When he asks you how your day was or your weekend is going, he feels shut down. I was the finance manager. Finance manager. I completely understand how it is to be penalized for not being a certain way or even in the office place, not being a mother figure. And every time we had a sit down with the salesperson, he would literally say, I'm just not used to people talking to me like this. Like when I go to my wife, if I say I can't figure something out, she does it. So when I come to you, I'm almost expecting that. And I said, well, that sounds like a personal problem. I don't know why you're bringing that to work because they want me to be their mom, or there's this expectation that I'm supposed to be bubbly and warm and friendly, or this cheerleader. But the men are allowed to just exist and do their job to the best of their ability. The men are allowed to go after opportunities and try to seize opportunities and be ambitious. But when women do it, it's like, you're a little bit out of place, baby. You need to calm down. I loved the part of the episode when they showed or they played different instances of men showing emotion while playing sports and the way that it was received versus Serena. That was telling. I feel like common sense and those of us who think critically already knew that, but I was so glad when they just put it out there blanket. Look at the shit we deal with. And I thought that was amazing. So I was really into this episode, obviously. So the next quote I kind of want to talk about is Meghan's quote. When you're young, I find you're so innocent, but you're also so fearless, right? And somehow, as we get older, because of these archetypes, because of what society's doing, because of the pressure of the media, because of all this noise, I don't think we're as fearless as we were then. I could not agree more. I have found that as an adult, I second guess myself so much more. I feel like I always think like, oh, I don't want to come off as mean. Even as a manager, I almost don't push through with an assertive tone for my employees saying she's mean when I simply said, hey, don't stand at my desk, give me an opportunity to respond to you in another way unless it's an emergency. So can you call my phone? Can you send me a chat, because we have this internal chat system? Can you email me based on the emergency level? Or choose, the communication channel wisely, and I trust that you'll make the right decision. Just don't make every issue a stand at my desk and line up thing. After that, the conversation moved over to talking about balancing motherhood and professionalism, and both of them are moms. And they talk about different little instances where they had real life shit going on with their kids and still had to show up in a professional sense, and no one would have understood otherwise. So they were kind of tasked with it. And they both gave credit to their husbands for being good parents, but also how their husbands, the expectations placed upon their husbands were different, whereas they still showed up. But it was interesting to hear that convo. So after that, Megan told a story about how when they were traveling to Africa, how they had a housing unit that they were staying at, and their nanny was there with Archie while they were on a commitment. And she talked about that infamous speech she gave on a tree stump. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. And so it was so real for me because I remember that. And when they got back, well, when they got in the car after the engagement, they found out there was a fire at the housing unit where they had just left Archie. They rush back and find out that Archie was okay because the nanny actually she put him on a swaddle and she took him to the kitchen with her while she got a snack before she put him down for his nap. And because of that, and I just feel like instincts and some things just work out because of that. He was not harmed, but the fire started in his room where he would have been napping due to a faulty heater. And she still had to leave there and go to another engagement. And none of us were the wiser. And it's just like there's always some, you never know what someone is dealing with. You never know what someone is going through. But the fact that they still had to show up and balance that, my life versus my professional life versus my home life, and how being ambitious is a problem, yet they're balancing just fine, yet the expectation on mothers is so different. Listening to that really did inspire me. At some point, I do want to have children too. And I already know the challenges I face in the workplace as just a woman, let alone a Black woman. And so there's always these different things that I deal with that a lot of other people in a lot of other subgroups or not subgroups don't deal with. So, add on top of that, being a mom, listening to two Black women or a biracial woman and a Black woman talk about their challenges on a massive scale, it was good to hear how candid they were and to kind of hear their point of view. And it's important for people to know you're not alone in that. That goes a long way. So they ended the episode. There was a lot more. I'm not going to give too much because I still want people to go listen to it. At the end of the episode, Megan asked a question. She said, what three words would you use to define yourself as a kid? And she asked, what three words would you use to define yourself now? And then her last question was, and how do you want the world to see you? So I'm going to answer the questions because I really enjoyed this podcast and I want to give it all the effort I can. They put in so much work to put this out and I'm going to participate. So the first question, what three words would you use to define yourself as a kid? I would say right off the bat, precocious, imaginative. I had a big imagination, and resilient. I survived a lot of shit as a kid, a lot. What three words would you use to define yourself now? Still, I would say resilient. I would say, welcoming. I welcome people all the time. And I will say, loving. Uh, how do you define yourself and how do you want the world to see you? We've talked about that here on this channel before, but I wanted to do a follow up. And I'll link the channel, the video that exists now. I will link that below. But I wanted to talk about how I did that on a different scale. And this came out, and I thought, well, that was perfect. That was just harmonious. But how do I define myself? I define myself by my contribution to my own life first, and then society next. I really do. One of the things that when I'm taking stock of my life in its present form, I look at, am I contributing to myself at all? Because that was at one point not a priority for me, and that's a huge mistake. So I actually had to learn to love myself because I was not taught to do so. I was taught to, oh, you were pretty, you should always be happy you're pretty. And I mean, I might not be pretty to everybody. Somebody, it depends on what you find to be pretty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But people would always say that, and that was really the only compliment I ever got, was like, you're pretty. But I was never taught to like genuinely love myself, respect myself, and take care of myself. And so now defining myself has in large part has come down to how I treat myself first, and defining my place in this world. And when I feel like I'm in alignment with my purpose, that feels good to me. And so when I'm defining myself, I'm like, am I in alignment? What is my purpose? So those things are important to me. And then how do you want the world to see you? Honestly, I want the world to see me as a wife, an aunt, a dog mom. I want the world to see me as a contributor to the good of society. I just want to leave the world better than I found it. I want the world to be a safe and healthy and happy place for not only myself and my family and friends, but everybody. I want the world to be a place where we can show up as ourselves and give it our best go, and we are supported in that. And that's my ultimate goal. So I want to hear your answers to those questions. So I'm sure you answered it because I'm sure you listened to the podcast episode. So share with me what your answers were to those questions in the comments below. Also, what did you think of the podcast? Are you excited? Next week, we're going to get to hear her to sit down with Mariah Carey. This is going to be such an amazing experience. I love this podcast already. I got the notifications on Spotify. I downloaded Spotify just for this episode. I mean, just for this podcast. I do not use Spotify. So now I do. Now I do. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have not already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on your notification bell, so that you can be notified whenever I drop a new video. And I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below, and follow me on all social media at SharionSade, and I will see you next time. Bye.